Quiet now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. You're going to dance until your feet fall off. You're not able to stand up any longer. But we're going to have a show.
Welcome to the Pink Door Podcast. Imagine walking into an open house on a Saturday morning. You totally fall in love with the place.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly where this is going.
Right. So you know the market is competitive, and you decide to be really aggressive. You offer like an incredible $100,000 over the asking price.
Which is a massive chunk of change.
Huge. And you waive your right to an inspection. You give them a flexible closing date. You go to sleep that night feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, you think you've definitely got it in the bag.
Exactly. And then, on Sunday afternoon, your phone rings, and you find out you didn't even make the top 3.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a nightmare scenario, but for a lot of people right now, that is just a standard weekend.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we're focusing on for today's deep dive. We're really tearing into the May 2026 real estate market update for Pembroke, Massachusetts.
And this is such an important topic for anyone looking to make a move.
Absolutely. And to do that, we aren't just relying on neighborhood gossip or, whatever the national news is saying. We were looking at a stack of incredibly specific data provided by Keller Williams Signature Properties.
Real hard data.
Yes, we're looking at MLS, PIN data, and RPR market trends reports. But for the listener who might not be in the industry, what exactly are those acronyms and, well, why should they care?
That is a great place to start because the source of the data matters immensely. When the average person looks for real estate data, they're usually looking at consumer apps.
Right, like the ones we all have on our phones.
Exactly. And those can be delayed or estimated or just heavily smoothed out. MLS PIN, though, is the actual unvarnished central nervous system that real estate agents in New England use to list and track properties in real time.
So it's the real deal.
It is the raw feed. And RPR, which stands for Realtors Property Resource, is essentially this massive analytics engine. It takes that raw data and spots the underlying trends.
So we aren't just looking at estimates today.
No, not at all. We are looking at the verified receipts of what is actually happening on the ground in Pembroke. Understanding this specific data is the ultimate shortcut for you to become a well-informed buyer or seller.
Because information is leverage. Right?
Exactly. Information is leverage.
Okay, let's unpack this. The overarching theme jumping off every single page of this data is that Pembroke right now is a fierce, almost aggressive seller's market.
Aggressive is definitely the right word.
Yeah. But before we get into the wild price tags, we actually need to talk about the velocity of the market. Because it seems to me, looking at these charts, that the speed of the transactions is the engine driving everything else.
It absolutely is. I always say speed is the symptom of the underlying condition.
Well, the symptom looks pretty severe. I'm looking at the RPR data right here, and the median days on market is just 7 days.
Wow, 7 days.
1 week. And that's actually nearly 17% drop from the previous month. It feels like buying a house in Pembroke right now is less like making a deliberate financial investment and more like trying to buy front row concert tickets.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right, like the absolute second they go online. You click refresh, you blink, and the whole stadium is sold out.
What's fascinating here is a metric that explains exactly why the market is moving at that lightning speed. It's called the month supply of inventory.
Okay, I see that on the report here.
Right. And right now, in Pembroke, it sits at 1.44 months. Now, let's translate that out of real estate jargon so we can understand the mechanics of it.
Yeah, please do.
Think of the housing market like the supply chain for a grocery store. If the delivery trucks suddenly stopped arriving today, the month supply tells us how long it would take for the community to buy every single item until the shelves are completely bare.
Oh, wow. Okay, so at 1.14 months.
Pembroke would run out of houses to sell in roughly 34 days.
That is wild, just 34 days.
Yeah. For context, a balanced market where buyers and sellers have roughly equal negotiating power and you can actually take a weekend to think about a purchase usually sits around 4 to 6 months of inventory.
Right, where you can actually breathe for a second.
Exactly. So at 1.14 months, we are operating in an environment of extreme structural scarcity.
I hear that, but let me challenge that panic just a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
I'm looking at the exact same column of data, and my brain is snagging on a detail here. Yes, 1.14 months is incredibly low, but that number actually represents a massive 42.5% increase month over month.
It does.
The inventory is going up. So if I'm a buyer listening to this and I've been getting outbid for 6 months, does this mean relief is finally coming? Is the supply chain finally fixing itself?
I would love to tell you that the floodgates are opening, but we really have to look at the mechanics of why that number bumped up and temper our expectations.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, we have the seasonal reality. May always sees a surge of listings as families try to time their moves with the end of the school year.
Oh, right, the classic spring bump.
Exactly, that is a typical spring bump. But more importantly, climbing from 3/4 of a month of inventory up to 1.14 months still leaves us deep in the red zone of a seller's market. To use your concert ticket analogy, it's like a stadium releasing 50 extra tickets to a crowd of 5,000 people.
Ouch. Yeah, that puts it in perspective.
Right. Yes, mathematically, supply increased by a huge percentage, but the underlying demand still utterly dwarfs it.
So why is the inventory still so fundamentally broken?
It comes down to the interest rate lock-in effect. So many current homeowners in Pembroke refinanced or bought when mortgage rates were in the 2 or 3% range a few years ago.
Yeah, those historic lows.
Exactly. Even if their house feels a little too small right now, they look at today's rates and they simply refuse to trade a 3% mortgage for a modern rate. Not unless a major life event forces them to move.
Right. They've got the golden handcuffs.
We literally call them the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Until that dynamic shifts, the scarcity is going to persist.
Which means, as a buyer, you cannot act like it's 2019. You don't have the luxury of casually browsing on a Sunday and thinking about it until Wednesday.
Exactly. You need to have the mechanics of your offer locked in before you even step foot on the driveway.
Meaning what, practically?
Your financing needs to be fully underwritten, not just pre-approved. Your agent needs to have the contract drafted in their head. The speed of this market demands total preparation.
That brings us to the psychological pressure cooker this speed creates. Because houses are flying off the market in a week, that panic is creating a massive gap between what sellers are asking for and what buyers are actually paying.
The gap is huge right now.
It really is. Let's look at the pricing paradox happening here. The median estimated property value for this area is around $703,000. But the actual median sold price in May just hit $775,000.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
And the stat that perfectly captures the sheer desperation is the sold to list price percentage, which sits at a staggering 103.1%.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a 103.1% average doesn't just mean one or two wealthy buyers are occasionally overpaying for a dream home.
No, it's an average. It's happening everywhere.
It means that bidding wars are the fundamental mechanism of the Pembroke market right now. The list price is no longer a reflection of the home's value.
What is it then?
It is an incredibly effective marketing tool designed to trigger an auction.
Can you break down the actual mechanics of how buyers are winning these auctions? Because you mentioned they aren't just walking in with a higher number, they are using specific strategies.
Yes, the primary weapon of choice right now is the escalation clause.
Okay, an escalation clause. How does that work?
For anyone listening who hasn't bought a home recently, an escalation clause is a provision in your offer that says, I will offer your asking price of $700,000. However, if you receive another verifiable offer higher than mine, I agree to beat their offer by $5,000 up to a maximum cap of $800,000.
Wow, so it's literally automated bidding like on an eBay auction, but for a house?
Precisely. And when you have 5 different buyers all deploying aggressive escalation clauses on the same Sunday afternoon, the price rockets upward instantly.
That sounds terrifying for a buyer.
It is. The intrinsic value of the wood, the land, and the foundation matters far less in that moment than the emotional desire to simply secure a home and end the exhausting search process.
Let's bring this to life because the MLS data has the exact receipts of these bidding wars. Look at what happened at 64 Copperwood Road.
Oh, this is a great example.
They put it on the market asking for just under $950,000. In 8 days, someone handed them over $1.04 million.
That's incredible.
And is almost $100,000 over the asking price. And when you look at the features, you start to see the psychology behind the frenzy. It was built in 2021. It has cathedral ceilings, a massive 18-kilowatt whole house generator, a smart irrigation system, and a giant walk-in pantry.
It is the ultimate turnkey property. And that word turnkey is the key to understanding buyer psychology right now.
Why is turnkey so important right now?
Because buyers are experiencing massive decision fatigue. They have been hunting for months, constantly losing. When they finally see a home like Copperwood, where they don't have to hire a contractor, they don't have to worry about the roof and the lawn waters itself, They decide they are not going to lose.
They just want it done.
Yes, they have the capital, and they happily trade that capital for zero mental friction.
You see the exact same thing at 50 Christina Marie Drive, a nice colonial on an acre and a half. They asked for $950,000, and someone wrote a check for exactly $1,050,000.
Exactly 100,000 over.
Boom, 100 grand over, gone in 2 weeks. So what does this all mean? It means if you are a buyer, you have to fundamentally change how you search for properties online.
You absolutely do. The search filter is where people make their first critical mistake.
How so?
If your maximum bank approval is $800,000, you cannot set your Zillow or MLS search maximum to $800,000.
Because the house will end up selling for more.
Exactly. If you do that, you will fall in love with homes that are destined to sell for $900,000. You have to shop a full pricing tier down. You should be looking at homes listed in the high 600s or low 700s.
That makes total sense.
You have to build in the runway to escalate your offer when the feeding frenzy begins.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and this is where my brain broke a little bit looking at the data.
Uh-oh.
We just established that buyers are desperate, inventory is non-existent, and people are throwing $100,000 premiums at houses.
All right.
Logically, you would think you could put a literal shack on a lawn in Pembroke and get $500,000 by Tuesday. But the data shows that is absolutely false.
It is a huge misconception that a rising tide lifts all boats equally. Even in a hyper-aggressive seller's market, buyers have boundaries.
Let's pull up the best example of this. 290 School Street. Remember, the median days on market is a blisteringly fast 7 days.
1 week.
This property sat empty for 223 days. That is an absolute eternity.
It really is.
It started with an asking price of $1.15 million.
Yeah.
It sat. The price dropped to $985,000, and finally, after 7 months, it closed for $920,000. Why on earth did a property sit for over 200 days when there are supposedly 0 houses to buy?
Because buyers are exhausted, not foolish. If we look at the specifics of 290 School Street, we find out exactly why it's at.
Okay, what was it?
It is a highly unique property. Yes, it's a massive colonial with nearly 4,000 square feet. It has a full first-floor in-law apartment. It has direct access to a beautiful park.
Sounds great so far.
But crucially, it featured a completely gutted garage that needed total rehabilitation, and it was being sold as is.
So they put a luxury $1 million price tag on a property that requires the buyer to basically take on a massive construction project the day they get the keys.
Exactly. And this goes right back to the concept of mental bandwidth we just talked about.
Right.
People spending over $1 million want the Copperwood experience.
Right, the smart irrigation.
They want the smart irrigation and the walk-in pantry. They do not want to spend their first 6 weekends in their new home pulling permits and drywalling a gutted garage.
Yeah, nobody wants that at $1 million.
When the seller priced a unique, project-heavy home at the very top of the market, they alienated everyone. They priced out the bargain hunters who would be willing to do the sweat equity, and they disappointed the luxury buyers who expect perfection. So, the house stagnated.
And the mechanism of a house stagnating is brutal, isn't it? Because once a property sits past that 30-day mark in a market where everything sells in 7 days, a stigma attaches to it.
That is the exact word for it, stigma. Buyers look at the days on market counter like an expiration date on a carton of milk.
Oh, that's so true.
If it says 45 days, they automatically assume something is fundamentally wrong with the foundation or the title. We saw a less severe version of this at 59 Erickson Lane.
Oh, I see that one here.
Beautiful colonial on over an acre. They listed at $1.15 million. It didn't get that immediate opening weekend frenzy. It sat for nearly a month, and they eventually had to accept $100,000 less than their original asking price to get it sold.
This raises an important question for anyone listening who's getting ready to list their home. How do you avoid that trap?
You have to price your home based on rational comparable sales, not on the headline-grabbing anomalies. Sellers see their neighbor get $100,000 over asking, and they get greedy.
They think they can just add that premium to their list price.
Exactly. They think, I'll just list mine $100,000 higher to begin with. But buyers have access to the same data we do. They know what a house is worth.
Right.
If you overprice, they will simply wait you out. They will let you sweat. They will let that stigma set in, and then they will negotiate you down. The irony of a seller's market is that if you price fairly, you usually spark a bidding war that pushes the price up. If you overprice, you end up taking a discount.
That is such a vital warning. But I want to pivot here because we've spent a lot of time talking about million-dollar bidding wars, massive estates, and high-stakes escalation clauses.
We have.
What about the average listener, the person who has a normal budget, doesn't want to fight a mob of 50 people, and just wants a solid place to live? Have they been completely priced out of Pembroke?
Not at all. And this is why digging into the granular data is so important. The extreme sales dominate the conversation, but there are absolutely pockets of opportunity if you understand how to navigate the blind spots of the market.
I am looking at a few sales here that prove your point, and they show a completely different reality. Take 174 West Elm Street.
Oh, a classic example.
This is a classic three-bedroom cape sitting on over an acre, and it even has an in-ground pool. It's sold for exactly its asking price of $500,000. It took 21 days. No crazy escalation clause, no waiving inspections in a panic, just a normal, straightforward transaction.
And that $500,000 price point is so important to highlight. It proves you do not need $1 million pre-approval to get a foothold in this town. But notice the trade-off.
Right, it wasn't a 7-day sale.
It took 3 weeks to sell, not 1 week. It is a slightly older style of home, not a 2021 build. The buyers who won that house succeeded because they stepped out of the spotlight.
We see it again at 8 Quaker Circle.
Hmm.
A 3-bedroom ranch, listed for around $710,000 and sold for $720,000. Yes, it went slightly over asking, but 10 grand over is a totally different universe than 100 grand over.
Absolutely.
And again, it took 42 days on the market.
Look at the active listings report in the data. While all the pending properties, the ones going under contract immediately, have a median price of around $675,000, the active properties that are actually sitting on the market range everywhere from $299,000 up to $799,000.
So the strategy for a buyer who is feeling exhausted is to actively look for the leftovers. Look for the homes on day 25, not day 2.
Precisely. If you are willing to buy a home that needs a cosmetic update, or you target a property that is sitting purely because the seller stubbornly overpriced it by 5% on day 1, you regain your negotiating power.
You avoid the frenzy entirely.
Exactly. The frantic mob is exclusively focused on the shiny, pristine properties. Let them fight over those. If you go where the crowd isn't, you can still find a relatively traditional real estate experience.
I love that. The data isn't just telling us what happened. It's providing a map of where the hidden loopholes are.
It really is. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you digest all of these mechanics.
Okay, let's hear it.
We noted earlier that the month's supply of inventory suddenly jumped up 42.5% this month. We know part of that is the spring rush, and we know the golden handcuffs are keeping inventory historically tight. But a 42.5% jump is still a massive statistical shift.
It is significant.
The question you need to ask yourself over the next few weeks is this. Are we seeing the very early, quiet whispers of the Pembroke market finally cooling down and shifting toward balance? Or is this just a momentary blip before the interest rates drop and a whole new wave of buyers floods the market?
That is the million-dollar question.
It's the most pivotal metric on the board right now, and it's something you should track closely as you plan your own transition.
If you have any questions about this episode, or if you are thinking about buying or selling a house anywhere on Boston's South Shore, from Southie to Sagamore, give Jim Aldred a call. He would love to speak with you. Jim believes that people in transition often feel anxious about buying or selling a home, and he provides them with the guidance and security to help your family move on smoothly. Thanks for listening, and catch you on the next episode of the Pink Door Podcast.